Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to Cloud Test Lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
What is it? Admin console of JBoss Krish will open only after configuring JMS onto the JBoss server.
Can you please repeat?
You give on the web browser, you give http://localhost:8090 admin console.
Yeah,
to open
correct.
the JBoss console, admin console. That will open only after you configure JMS onto JBoss server.
No, it was not required. See, JMS is just like a service that was available on JBoss application server.
Okay. Then to get that admin console, Krish, what do we have to do?
You need to start the JBoss server.
Okay.
Once after that, go to the web browser and check for localhost 8080/admin console.
Okay. Thanks, Krish.
Yep. You're welcome. This weekend, we'll have a class on Sunday, 7 p.m. EST. So we are going to cover any of the small topics. We'll start with JUnit, and if time passes, we'll cover AND as well.
Krish, for the Sunday class, is that
Please try to practice the EJBs, which we have discussed yesterday. And if you have any issues, go through the RAR file which I have sent for the application. And you're going to create queues and topics on the JBoss console, and then only you'll be able to receive the messages. Yes, Sumit, we'll discuss that in next week. Okay, let us start with Spring. As you guys already aware of the name, Spring is a popular open source framework. This was also introduced pretty long back. This was released to avoid the issues that are raised by heavyweight frameworks. So whenever you have verified any kind of books or any kind of websites, normally they'll compare with EJBs. The purpose of Spring to be released is only because of the heavyweight framework, which is EJB business components. But the recent version of EJB, it was also a lightweight component based framework. But as of now, we are going to discuss only with respect to EJB 2.0, comparing with EJB 2.0, which is a heavyweight framework. We have already seen in last class about the issues that we need to face when we are using EJB 2.1 or 2.0 version. Spring, it is a framework, or you can say it is a container. Spring is a lightweight container. Spring application, whenever you write any kind of Spring related application, you are going to develop the application based on POJO classes. POJO is nothing but your normal form beans or your action forms. The main advantage of Spring framework, it's not required for you to have any kind of application server or web server to run Spring related applications. You can just execute as a standalone application, but we are saying that Spring is a container itself. The container will be maintained by the framework itself. It's not required to have a separate container that will be provided by any kind of application server or web server. Your web server consists of web container, application server consists of both web container and EJB container. Spring container is not related to those two things. Spring container, nothing but it is also just like a set of class files which will maintain all your application processing. Spring was created to address the complexity of enterprise applications by incorporating plain vanilla Java beans, nothing but POJO classes. So in Spring, the Java beans are called as plain vanilla Java beans. Another advantage with Spring framework is all the objects in Spring are loosely coupled. In the sense, it won't depend on the framework. If you take a look at our struts framework, it is tightly coupled to the framework. Whenever you are writing any kind of action class, you are supposed to extend action class and you need to override the execute method. Then only your framework can invoke the action class objects or execute method. So there it is tightly coupled to the system, but here in Spring, all the objects are loosely coupled. You are not going to extend or implement any kind of classes or interfaces. You are going to write your own Java beans and you are going to inform the Spring framework about those Java beans, and Spring will maintain all those Java beans. A single definition for Spring framework: Spring is a lightweight, inversion of control, and aspect-oriented container framework. Lightweight, just now only we have discussed. Objects in a Spring application, whenever you are creating any kind of Java Bean object, it won't depend on Spring framework. That's why it was called as lightweight or loosely coupled system. Inversion of control. Inversion of control or dependency injection. The terms are used vice versa. Normally, when we want to create any kind of object, we'll use new operator, and we are going to create an object based on the class representation, and then we are going to use the properties or methods from the class. With inversion of control with IOC, let us say our employee object is referring to address object. When you are creating employee object, you need to have the reference for address object as well, because address itself is a separate Java class, and you need to have a in-memory allocation for address object. When you are using IOC, inversion of control, the dependency objects are passed by the framework or by the container, and it's not required for you to create any kind of objects based on new operator. That means it's not required for us to create any kind of object on our own. Spring will be directly providing the object reference to you. And one more thing is, it's not required for you to ask the Spring framework to provide the object. It will be passively given directly to you, and it's not required for you to ask the Spring framework to provide the object reference. And the next one is container. We have mentioned that in Spring we are going to write plain old Java objects, POJOs. Yeah, we'll discuss that during the application, then you will be able to understand clearly. Container. Once you have created any kind of bean objects, see, currently you are not going to create the bean object. Spring container or Spring framework will create the bean object for you, and it will directly provide the object to you. That is called inversion of control. Or else the dependencies, what are all the dependencies that are required for your object, that will also be provided or injected by the framework itself and provide that to you directly. So the bean was created by the framework itself, nothing but your container. So your container is responsible for managing the life cycle of the bean. Just like how your servlet is maintained by your web container, here also the plain Java objects will be maintained by the container, nothing but our Spring container. And the last one, framework. We have discussed about EJB container, and we have mentioned that EJB container will provide transaction management, and if you want, it can provide the dependent objects based on resource annotation, and it has the capability of integrating with any other frameworks as well. In the same way, your Spring also has the capability of maintaining all those services. It can start a transaction when you want to work on any kind of persistent objects, and it has the capability of integrating with other frameworks like struts framework or tiles plugin or validation plugin. Tiles and validation we have discussed in struts. So we can incorporate tiles and validation with Spring framework as well. And we have the option of integrating to struts framework as well from our Spring framework. And the addition, like you have the access to JNDI and also the JMS. Once you have created JMS queues and topics on the application server, your Spring has the capability of contacting the JMS provider and sending or receiving the messages. So your Spring will provide all these services based on an XML file configuration. That's the reason Spring will be called as a framework as well. It will provide a lot of services which will be provided by your normal container itself. Spring framework was divided into several modules. See, we have mentioned that Spring has several capabilities. Like it has the capability of working with beans, Java beans, and we have mentioned that it has the capability of persistence, and also it can communicate with other frameworks as well. So that's the reason Spring was divided into several modules instead of a single composite module. There are several modules available in Spring framework, but at the high level, there are 7 modules available in Spring framework. You can see that some of them are we already familiar. MVC framework, we already familiar with MVC framework within struts, and also the DAO layer, war mapping module. So some of the modules, at least we know the names. Let us discuss in brief about each and every module. The first one is core module. As the diagram designates, the core container or the core module is the basis for all the remaining modules. Based on core module only, all the remaining modules are developed. Whenever you want to work on any other module, you need to have the configuration with core module at the ground level. The core module, it will deal with a special design pattern, which is factory pattern. Factory pattern, which will specify about creation of objects. With Spring, you are not going to create any kind of object on our own. You are going to ask the Spring framework to provide the object reference or to provide the object. See, normally when you want to create any kind of object, we'll use employee emp equal to new employee. Or else when you consider our car class, car car equal to new car, you are going to create like this. But when we are writing this one, let us say someone has asked like, I don't want car class, I want vehicle class. Or let us say I want some other truck class. So normally what we'll do, we'll design an interface, vehicle interface. We'll design a vehicle interface and we'll mention that our car or truck was derived from vehicle interface. Car dot get model. So the get model you are going to specify in vehicle level. So that will be accepted. Now either you create an object for car level or truck level. So that means you can simply replace this car with truck and this code will be going to work because you are referring the top level interface and you are going to call the method which was available in the interface itself, and it will follow the DMD process and it will invoke the get model at lower level. So as of now this is fine, but let us say someone else has came and he has mentioned that I want some other class. Let us say I want new truck class. Let us say someone else has came and asked for bike class. That means you are supposed to change the Java code at this level, and then only you can invoke the model, the get model based on your vehicle reference. So instead of you doing all these things or creating an object on our own, what you can do is you don't write any kind of object creation on your own. You are going to inform to the Spring framework that will be mentioned in an XML file. You are going to ask the Spring framework, let us say the framework is a factory bean. So you are going to ask the factory bean or Spring framework that I want an object for bike class, or I want an object for car class, or I want an object for vehicle class. So at the top level, you are going to specify only to the Spring framework, and Spring framework will take a look at the configuration and it will create the object and it will directly provide the object reference to you. Changing at the XML level, it's not required for you to compile the Java file or generate the .class file again. That's the intention that these guys, the Spring framework guys, they have designed or they have followed the factory pattern, and the object creation will be done at the framework level but not at the user level. The user only needs to ask for the object See, normally when we are using action class, struts action class, the action class object who are going to create, that will be created by your struts framework. And struts framework will create an object, and after that it will pass the object like request or response to you or the form bean to you by using execute method. Once after that, you are going to retrieve the data from the action form and you are going to process the request. Here also, you are going to use such type of concept only, but they have renamed that as dependency injection. Dependency injection. What are all the dependencies that are required for your class? Let us say for our employee class. What are all the dependencies required for our employee class? I need address object. I need first name. I need last name. Designation. Salary. So I need all these stuff to have my employee object created properly. So your Spring framework will create an object based on the configuration that you have specified in the XML file, and it will also provide the dependencies. Currently the dependency is your address class. Address itself is a separate reference variable. It needs to be allocated as new address. The remaining stuff, it was not required because they are just like normal properties. So your Spring will take care about this particular address as well, and it will create an object for address also, and it will directly inject the property or inject the value to your address reference. So the first core module, it will deal with bean factory, nothing but it will work entirely based on the XML configuration, and it follows the factory pattern, nothing but creation of objects, and it will provide you the dependencies that are required for your POJO class. The next module is application context module. Application context module. This is developed on top of core container. It was just an enhancement for your core container, and it also provides internationalization support. Internationalization, nothing but whenever you want to work with different countries or different languages, then you need internationalization support. That will be provided within your context module, and it will also provide some life cycle events for your Bean class. If you want to have some kind of life cycle events, just like your Servlet context listener, those classes are available within your application context module. But your core container doesn't have that capability. There is one another difference between core container and application context module that we'll discuss when we are writing the code. The next one, AOP module. AOP module, or else this will be called as Crosscutting Concerns module. This module was developed by another open source framework, Aliens open source framework, and then it was integrated with Spring framework. AOP module, it will be called as, it will be used for solving the issues like cross-cutting concerns. Cross-cutting concern. Let us say take any kind of normal application. In any kind of application, you need logging. Let us say you need transaction management. You need security. When you are writing a banking application, you need the security for each and every page. That means the authentication or authorization needs to be verified for each and every page. These are all not related to our actual business logic code. Logging, it is only used for debugging purpose when we have some kind of issues. Security, it is only required to verify the user authenticity or authorization. Those two won't come under the part of business logic. So these kind of stuff which are not related to business logic but are required for our application, they will be called as cross-cutting concerns. So your Spring has the capability of specifying these modules separately. You can directly invoke these cross-cutting concerns just before executing your actual business logic. That means it's not required for you to write the logging or security at each and every method level. See, normally when we want to debug any kind of code, we'll write the logger messages once you have entered into the method and before you are exiting from the method. So those kind of messages, it's not required for you to write at each and every method level, and you can inform to the Spring framework that I want to invoke the logging module with each and every method startup or end. Then Spring will take care of invoking that method. That means you are going to write the logging code only at a single place as a separate class file, and your Spring will invoke this particular method based on the configuration.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website h2kinfosys.com. On our website h2kinfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.